Carl, what have you done?
Think anyone will notice?
Mr. Carl Jackson.
Carl Jackson was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. After the sudden death of his mother at the age of 11, he moved between LA and Orlando, Florida, trying to find his way in life.
So I'm clearly a Carl Jackson fan.
Carl Jackson.
Carl Jackson.
Carl Jackson.
Although he was introduced to hard work, faith, and family values, as a struggling teen, he wandered down the path of least resistance, finding himself jailed twice. By the grace of God, he attended an evangelical church and found that there was a better way and accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior.
There's just no fake stuff about Carl Jackson.
Now, on the Salem Podcast Network, Carl has launched on a journey to help people of all races and backgrounds to discover facts of America's true past, as well as realize the benefits of utilizing their God-given gifts and talents, which far outweigh any benefit from a government subsidy or program.
It's dangerous out here. Let's roll, Carl.
Get going fast.
Redeemed, rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
Welcome to the Carl Jackson Podcast. Listen, I am so honored and privileged to have with me today Mark Walters of Armed American Radio. Mark, listen, there are a few stories that I want to talk about with you today. But there is one that has happened most recently that has struck me, that concerns me big time, and that is this story with the Remington gun manufacturers agreeing to a settlement with the parents of the Sandy Hook shooting, or Sandy Hook families, children that were obviously shot and killed. A pretty large settlement. I've heard a couple of numbers, so maybe you can clarify. I've heard 33 million. I've heard 73 million. I'm not sure which is which, but you guys may recall that this murderer went into Sandy Hook Elementary School, basically executed children. Sadly enough. But now the parents came out maybe a couple or so years later. I think this has been 8 years in waiting. And sued the gun manufacturer or the maker, Bushmaster. So this is pretty scary to me, Mark. Let me give you why this is very disconcerting to me, and then I want to hear what you have to say about it. Here's what I think this is a very dangerous precedent. I disagree with Remington settling the case. I think, and I don't know, I'll wait to hear from you. Maybe this was listen, we're going to spend less money right now instead of fighting this thing in the court system for God knows how long. And I can understand that point of view if indeed that is the case. I don't know. Again, I'm speculating, and I'll wait to hear from you. But I think this sets a dangerous precedent. Are we going to be able to sue car manufacturers if someone is killed inside of a particular brand of car? I don't know where this ends, and I think this is extremely, in my opinion, I think this is a blow to the Second Amendment. Your take, Mark Walters.
Yeah, Carl, thanks for having me on. A pleasure is all mine, brother. Great to be with you as always. There's a lot to unpack here, okay, with this. So let's get into it, because words mean things, and I think I might be able to make you feel a little bit better.
Okay.
But I share every one of your concerns and then some, but I want to try to make you feel a little bit better in the process.
Okay.
First off, Remington, let's go back to what happened. You had a killer who shot his mother in the face, murdered her so that he could steal one of her weapons. He then subsequently went to Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, killed 20 first graders and 6 adults. It's an atrocious crime. It's horrific. It is proof positive that evil exists on this planet and walks amongst us. The manufacturer of the firearm at the time, Remington, was the manufacturer of the Bushmaster XM15 AR-15 platform that the killer used. Remington is protected, as all gun manufacturers are, by the PLCAA, the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. And what that does is shields gun manufacturers from being able to be sued for the third-party use or criminal misuse of their product. I mean, this is common sense, as you mentioned, automobile manufacturers. We go back to this analogy all the time. You cannot sue Ford for the actions of a drunk driver in a Ford minivan that kills a family on a highway in Albuquerque. Ford is not responsible for the actions of that driver. It's patently absurd to even consider or think that they would be, because the killer used a Ford to drive hammered, frankly. In this particular case, the PLCAA protects and shields gun manufacturers from this criminal misuse of their firearms. The first judge, when this first went to trial, when the families sued Remington, found that to be the case and acknowledged the PLCAA, and it was thrown out of court. The Connecticut Supreme Court later looked at it and said that the PLCAA, in fact, does protect these firearms manufacturers. However, he allowed them to sue under Connecticut state law under unfair trade practices. And what he meant by that was, you can skirt the PLCAA here. We're going to let you go to court on this. We're going to let you sue on this. Let me put it that way. Civilly, Remington, stating that it was their marketing that convinced this individual that this gun should be used. So what you have to stretch. This is a stretch. You would have to believe that the killer, in this case Adam Lanz, I hate to use his name, but for the sake of our conversation here, we will. Sure. The killer, you would have to believe, murdered his mother so that he could steal that gun because of advertisements that he saw. That's why he did what he did and then used that firearm. That's a stretch, and we all know it. Now, Remington, let me try to make you feel a little better here. Use the word precedent. There's been no legal precedent set here. This case never went to trial.
Okay.
This was an out-of-court settlement that was put in place by 4 different insurance companies. I don't know who the insurance companies are. We've got guys looking into this now. That information is going to come out in the days and months and weeks ahead. And we don't know why they settled, other than the fact that that's what attorneys do. Attorneys want to settle these cases, and for whatever reason, the insurance companies were convinced to settle the case. They settled the case, from what I understand, for $73 million. And from what I understand, there were 6 families involved. But again, there's no legal precedent set here. The statement from the National Shooting Sports Foundation and other legal groups is, if this had gone to a jury trial, a civil trial, that they would have prevailed. The plaintiffs would have lost in this case. Even if they had prevailed, there would have still been grounds for appeal under the PLCAA. The case would have been appealed. But in this case now, there is no appeal because the insurance companies paid out. But I want to make it clear, there's no legal precedent set here. Remington's been out of business for 2 years. They didn't settle anything. The insurance companies did, not Remington. Okay. Remington has been sold off to 5 different investors. Their products have been sold off, over the course of the last 2 years. They're bankrupt. They're out of business. Remington management didn't sit down and say, okay, let's settle this case. Remington didn't exist. The insurance companies are what settled this case. So there's been no legal precedent. Now, having said that, that doesn't matter, as you know, to Joe Biden and the anti-gunners and Every Town for Gun Safety and Moms Demand Action and the Brady Campaign and the Giffords Law Center and Bloomberg, all of his affiliated groups. And they're going to use, as Biden said, Biden laid out yesterday in a statement that this was a historic case, right, and he wants other groups to follow the blueprint laid out in this case to go forward to sue these gun manufacturers and dealers, he mentioned in his statement. So let's take it a step further. You use the car analogy. Let's say you owned a mom and pop hardware store, Carl's Hardware, okay? And somebody walks in and buys rope,
right,
an axe, a knife, and a shovel.
Right.
And then goes out and subsequently uses that rope to strangle somebody, uses the knife to stab them, uses the axe to chop them up, and then buries them with the shovel.
Right.
Under what we've seen in this settlement, theoretically, according to Biden and the rest of the anti-gunners, not only would the manufacturer of each of those items individually be able to be sued for the criminal misuse of their product, but so would you, acting as the dealer in this particular case, as the hardware store. When Biden says dealer, he's talking about your local gun shop, who he wants to, quote unquote, hold accountable. So yeah, you're going to see, I believe, what's the word I'm looking for? You're going to probably see an avalanche of these types of suits across the country. Eventually, I believe personally, the Supreme Court's going to have to get involved in this. They refused to look at this case originally. They declined to look at it, and hence we have this massive insurance. Okay, settlement.
So that does. So what you said makes me feel a little better legally. So I'll change my wording. So there isn't precedent. There isn't legal precedent because, as you mentioned, the case was settled before they got into the courtroom. Okay, so then what you alluded to is the narrative. And the narrative going forward then, so let me reframe it. The narrative going forward is what concerns me because I think we have a bunch of feckless Republicans that will not understand or know how to defend against this narrative, or perhaps, Mark, I don't even care. I'm not even sure. To be honest with you, but I know that using the narrative now that they're using, it is likely that obviously the left will continue to do everything they can to strip us of our Second Amendment rights, and they'll use whatever narrative possible to do so. And I have to say this, and this is me saying this, I really do feel sorry for the families. I've not lost a child in this way. I've lost plenty of friends in the past due to gang violence, and a couple of family members as well. But I've not lost a family member due to some insane maniac coming to shoot them up and kill them. Having said that, my frustration is that my frustration with a narrative like this is that the cries will get so loud that these people will attempt to nullify my rights. And these parents, as bad as I feel for you, I want to be emphatically clear. I am so sorry for your loss. And I know this is what some of these people want. They do not have the right to nullify my right to defend my life. And that's where I fear this will lead up. And I fear because of this settlement, thank you for the clarification again, it just opens the door for a new narrative for the left that can honestly do damage to the Second Amendment. Your take, Mark?
Yeah, you're spot on. And I like your choice of the word narrative, because this is something that I talk about on my show frequently. And that is the narrative. It's the agenda that's being pushed here that's important that we have to look at. And Biden just laid out that blueprint. He just proved you 100% dead on accurate. He proved everything I've been saying over the last 13 years to be correct. The narrative that they're driving here, and the words, the key operative words in what the narrative that the administration is pushing is holding gun manufacturers accountable. Right. What does that mean? What does that mean? Does Glock need to be held accountable when Xuanwei Cho walks into Virginia Tech, murders 32 people, not using an assault weapon, which is also a false narrative, okay, right, but uses a Glock 19 and a semi-automatic Glock 19 pistol and a semi-automatic 22 right, pistol. In 10 minutes, he murdered 32 people. Is Glock responsible for the actions of that particular killer? I'm going to submit to you, of course he's not. And any clear-thinking individual, or of course Glock is not responsible for the actions of that criminal. That criminal could have chosen any firearm. Now let's take it even farther. Okay. You're very familiar with gang violence. You're familiar with how gangs get their weapons. My local gun shop down the street has been broken into over the last 4 years, four or five separate times. These people use stolen Durango, the last one, to back it into the wall, knock the brick wall down, get into the store, push safes out of the way, and in 120 seconds come out of there with about 100 guns out of a case that they smashed. If one of those individuals sells one of those guns randomly to a random drug dealer on the streets of Atlanta, which is what happens, and that individual uses that particular firearm that he bought randomly from a guy who stole it from a gun shop and uses it to commit a mass murder, do we have the same situation that we have at Newtown, where all of a sudden the manufacturer of the purchase of the firearm that was purchased unlawfully, that was stolen, is now somehow responsible in the same way that the insurance companies settled with, or would the insurance companies of whatever gun manufacturer that is, whoever that manufacturer is? Where do we draw the line here? The implication here moves far beyond the firearms industry, because to use the logic that Biden uses as he creates and drives this narrative in a complete and total effort to put gun manufacturers and dealers out of business. That's their goal. They laid it out for you. Now you know we're not the crazy gun nuts here, Carl. The President of the United States just laid out the blueprint to use for others to use as a tool to hold the gun manufacturers and the dealers accountable. Where does this end? You asked it in the opening segment. As far as I can see, it doesn't. Anything. Spoons gave me diabetes.
Right.
Because where does this end? I know it sounds crazy,
No, it's a slippery,
but it's not. The same argument can be made.
It's a slippery slope, Mark. And to add to your point, and I want to get your reaction to this, Kim Potter, Officer Kim Potter, who I believe was totally innocent when she shot Dante Wright. My opinion is, you listen, I'm a cop. I'm pulling you over. You have a warrant out for your arrest. One of my officers is part of his body is inside of your car. You choose to take off. In my opinion, she had every right to pop a cap in him. I feel bad for the family. I don't want anyone to lose their child. But in that case, in that particular predicament, Mark, I would have shot the guy. So I feel like it's a severe injustice to Kim Potter. But consider the defund the police movement. Right, and these wackos that have bought into this nonsense where communities are just being destroyed as a result of that narrative. Now, this officer shoots Dante Wright. Now, can Glock again, because cops mostly, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, use Glock. Can Glock be sued because of that? I mean, there's just so many areas where I'm like, this is so freaking dangerous. It's upsetting, and I get more frustrated because I don't hear Republicans coming out like a John Lott or yourself, or I wish they would use you. I wish they would speak to you more, Mark. To be honest, I wish they would speak to a John Lott and talk about the serious numbers in where guns are used to defend life and stop crime. And I'm like, if we don't get somebody on our side that has a platform in Washington, D.C. to start talking about this stuff incessantly and loudly, I fear of where this narrative is going to lead us.
Well, that narrative this is why, again, it's funny you mentioned this because we talked about this yesterday on Armed American Radio's Daily Defense.
Oh, by the way, let me pause you there, Mark. Please give out all of your information. I want you, those of you that are listening to this podcast right now, Carl Jackson Podcast, and actually I'm going to be changing the name because I just realized there were several other Carl Jackson podcasts. Who would have guessed? I thought I was unique, so we're going to have to brand this a little differently. But you can go to the Salem Podcast Network and you can subscribe there. Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, wherever podcasts are found. But I want Mark to give out his information. And for those of you tuning in, I want you to follow this guy. I want you to listen to this guy. If you're concerned about your Second Amendment rights, or if you're concerned about the Second Amendment threats to American citizens, law-abiding citizens, this is the guy you need to listen to. This is the guy you need to follow. Mark Walters, please give out your information.
Yeah, you can follow me over in that cesspool known as Twitter at AAR Mark as long as I'm currently on it. It won't be for long. I can't wait to get off of it. I hate it. But ArmedAmericanRadio.com and my newest news division, ArmedAmericanNews.com. I've got a team of fantastic journalists that are putting these stories up there and telling you the truth. And we do something different. We separate news from opinion. When you look at the byline, you can see it's a news piece, or you can see it's an opinion piece. And if you go up to the heading at ArmedAmericanNews.com, you can separate the news by news and opinion and break it out and read my thoughts on certain things, or you can read the basic news blurbs and just get your news and opinion at the same location, but all of it related to the right to keep and bear arms. Armed American Radio airs 6 days a week, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific, and on Sundays on what I call my Monster Cast on over 200 plus radio stations from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern and 5 to 8 p.m. Pacific Time on hundreds of radio stations around the country. We've been at this for 13
including
years.
The radio station here locally. I still have my local show on theanswerorlando.com, so he comes on from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time right after my homeboys, the American Adversaries. So, Mark, I appreciate all you do, and let's just continue with the conversation.
Well, let's go back to that narrative. I'm big on these narratives because, again, you bring up such a great point, and that is we don't hear – this is called, as far as I'm concerned, it's criminal. As far as media is concerned, it's called a lie of omission. When you have editors that make decisions at the top of the chain not to run a particular story when it is in fact news, and two of them come to mind, and I'm going to repeat these because I think it's necessary to do so. These were two of the greatest human interest stories I've seen in my life doing this 13 years on the radio. One of them happened down in Lee County, Florida, just a few years ago, about 3 years ago, when a Lee County deputy found himself at rush hour traffic pulling someone over right off of Interstate 75, broad daylight, Guy got out of the car, attacked the deputy, ambushed him, put him on his back, was trying to kill him, MMA style, pummeling him, trying to get his gun. Everybody else stood around and filmed it. And didn't do anything to help the deputy. Now, it's Florida. You know that the percentage of those people had firearms in their cars. The cop is screaming for help. When an individual with a concealed carry permit said, enough of this, approached the cop with his gun drawn, said, what do you want me to do? The cop said, shoot him. He's trying to kill me. He's trying to take my gun. He hit him a couple times in upper body, didn't stop him. The cop yelled for him to shoot him in the head. The individual with the firearm legally carried, shot him in the head and ended it. Here's what's such a great human interest story about it, if that's not enough. The cop was white. The guy trying to kill him was black. The individual with the concealed carry permit holder, permit holder, was also black.
You won't hear that.
He won the highest award from Lee County that you can be given for saving the life of this deputy. You never saw this on the Alphabet Network News, ABC, NBC, so that you can CBS. You didn't see it on MSN, NBC, DNC, LOL, CNN. You saw it on none of these networks, none. And there's a reason for that, because they don't want you to see that positive use of a firearm, because they're glorifying guns. It flies in the face of their anti-gun agenda narrative they've created over the years. Just back on the 10th of this month, February 10th, Carl, we had a headline that I covered, which was remarkable, even more important than that story, where you had 3 veteran neighbors. You had a guy that was out burning some trash in his yard legally. A drunk neighbor got mad because some of the smoke got into his house. Rather than closing the windows, he went outside with a shotgun and started filling the air with birdshot. When that happened, the cops were called. When the cops were called, 2 officers showed up. This guy, drunk, went back in the house, got a few more beers in, and came back outside, began firing on the cops. Hit one of the cops in the head. The other officer got between the fallen officer and the attempted murderer here and began taking fire. He too was wounded. When neighbors came out with their own weapons and laid down suppressing fire on the guy so that cops and themselves could get between them and take those 2 officers to safety. Neighbors laying down suppressive fire to keep the guy in his house so that the cops could be rescued. Did you see this on ABC, NBC, or CBS?
Absolutely not.
No, you did not. That to me is criminal. People should be held accountable for not giving us this type of quote unquote real news. And we know why they don't do it. They don't do it because they don't want to quote unquote glorify guns. This happens every single day across this country, thousands of times. Obama's own Justice Department tried to downplay it, and the lowest they could get was 180,000 defensive gun uses per year. Divide that by 365 days, and you've got guns are used far more frequently to save lives than to take lives in America, and you will never see this from the media. That is criminal in my estimation, and people need to be held accountable. It's that simple.
It's almost like therapeutics for COVID. Utilize it's insane, but this is what the left continues to do. And obviously, we can see what's happening in Ottawa. We saw what happened in Venezuela. You can see the Chinese Communist Party running shop, taking over countries like Hong Kong, and now you realize that the Second Amendment, guys. Let me no beef about it. The Second Amendment, it's great to be able to go out and hunt. It's even greater to be able to defend your life in a situation in which your life is in danger. But the Second Amendment exists in the United States of America so that we could not be overrun by tyrants. It is a government of, for, and by the people. And this is what makes the Second Amendment so important. Mark, I've talked to you about this before. I get so frustrated with blacks and minorities that want to voluntarily disarm. And I understand, you hear the narrative, you hear all of the chaos that happens within blue cities across America, and sadly, tons of black on black crime, Latino on black, so on, etc. And so you hear about a gun being used. No one talks about the man holding the metal. Right. The piece of metal is amoral. A gun won't do anything except except what the person behind the gun is willing to do. So the issue is morality. The issue isn't metal. But I get so frustrated with minorities that will buy into this nonsense, and yet they'll talk about slavery. They'll talk about Jim Crow, and I'm like, can we go back to black codes for God's sakes? When blacks weren't allowed to own firearms in the United States of America for fear that they would seek retribution or revenge against their former slave owners. It's insane. It's insane to me that law-abiding blacks will buy into this. And I figure the best way to keep you behind safe when somebody is coming at you with a gun, Mark, is to own a bigger gun so you'll scare the crap out of them.
Yeah. Look, the Second Amendment's colorblind.
Yeah,
okay?
good work.
The
Good
right
work.
to we're talking about a basic human right here. I don't care what your politics are. If you own a gun for the right, you have a right to own a firearm in this country, regardless of your skin color, your religion, your politics. God bless you for owning a firearm to do that. Now, where I take issue with this is I hear this nonsense term, the gun community. What does that mean, the gun community? There are lots of Antifa members that go out and train with their firearms so that they can do bad things. Are they a member of the gun community simply because they own a firearm? Okay, we need to break away from these types of narratives and get off of this. There are a lot of people out there that own firearms that have every right to do so that still vote for Joe Biden, who is trying to, as he said yesterday, bankrupt the gun industry. So the reason that happens is because and everybody has a right to do this. That's fine. That's good for them. Whatever they want to do. This is America. But where I have a problem with this is when you get to a point where someone is voting against their gun rights, there's a reason for that. The gun isn't their biggest issue. Maybe climate change is their big issue. Maybe LGBTQ. Maybe whatever it is. They have a right to make it whatever it is. But don't call yourself a gun rights activist when you're a gun owner that votes for the party that wants to take your guns, which is the Democrat Party, by the way. And let's make that very clear. It is the Democrat Party that wants my guns. It is in their language, written into their party platform. It's all over Biden. All you have to do is Google the Joe Biden plan to end gun violence. We'll give Kamala Harris her due here. Google it. Google it.
Right.
All right.
Something she's
Google
done,
the Joe Biden plan to end gun violence, and it will take you to a bullet point, step by step outlay of how he wants to confiscate your firearms, because the last bullet point is the magical buy them back. After they've registered them, found out where they are, banned the importation of them, banned the further sale of them, then they go after the ones that are in the wild, which means all of our millions of AR-15s, for example, by buying them back. You can't buy back something that you didn't own, and mine isn't for sale, so good luck with that. Come and get it. That's where that comes from. But it is the Democrat Party that is after your firearms. And I don't understand the people who buy a firearm and then vote and love that right to self-defense and go out and train religiously. God bless them for doing it. But then vote for that party that's trying to take away their guns. But that's just me, Carl. That's just
It's because
me.
they haven't dealt with the morality, the issue of life and morality in their heads, unfortunately. A couple more things before we let you go, Mark, that I wanted to get your take on. A couple of headlines that I came across from your friend A.W.R. Hawkins, and I've been wanting to have you on for quite some time, so it's a privilege and honor to have you on here today. But there was a report on Breitbart that GOP lawmakers investigating a possible ATF gun registry that's been unbeknownst to the American citizens. Representative Mike Cloud, a Republican from Texas, and 35 other Republican lawmakers are reportedly probing the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives compilation of over 900 million firearm sales and transfer records. On February 1, Breitbart News pointed to a Washington Free Beacon report which said the ATF disclosed to lawmakers that it manages a database of 920,664,765 firearm purchase records, including both digital and hard copy versions of these transactions. This report came just days after Chuck U. Schumer, as the beloved Rush, rest in peace, Rush, 1 year anniversary since his death, man.
Unbelievable. That's been a year. I can't believe it's been a year today. That's mind-boggling,
man. I miss that guy to this day. I was literally going to give a speech when Christopher Hart of the American Adversaries texted me, and I started bawling like a baby while I had to give just insane. I miss that guy. All right, so this report came just days after Senator Chuck Schumer asked for $1.5 billion in funding to allow the ATF to be more involved in specific gun control initiatives. Your take, Mark Walters of Armed American Radio, and also check him out, armedamericannews.com.
Who would have thought otherwise? It's our job to not trust the federal government. I've always wondered, is the ATF really throwing away all these records? Do you honestly, but you have to assume that they're not. So it's that, what I'm saying is that didn't surprise me. When I heard that, I wasn't shocked by that at all. I'm disappointed by it, but I'm not shocked by it at all. It's a rogue agency. The Bureau of, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, all three are legal. Okay, this is a rogue agency that I believe should have been disbanded a long time ago. But again, that's just my opinion. You can go back to Ruby Ridge. You can go back to Waco. You can go back to all kinds of things. You can go back to David Chipman. You can go back to event after event after event where the ATF is its sole purpose is to infringe and to enforce infringements on the right to keep and bear arms. And that's exactly what they're doing here. This is not a shocking report to me whatsoever to think that the ATF is keeping these records. Dealers, not manufacturers, but dealers are required by law to keep these records for 20 years, and then they're destroyed. The ATF wants to get rid of that and wants to be able to keep them for longer. There's a reason for that because they're amassing a database. Look, I love this analogy, and that's the Red Dawn analogy. You've seen the movie Red Dawn, the original, not the remake. But there's a part where that Cuban general on the streets tells one of the soldiers, the guy says, Americans are armed. We don't know who has what when we go house to house. He says, all you got to do is go to the local gun shop and pull the sales record, the Form 84473, and you know where they are. But Americans have known this for years. So I'm not shocked by it. I'm disappointed by it. And it's just another reason, in my estimation, my personal opinion, that the ATF needs to go by the way of the dodo.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The good news in that story, or the silver lining to me, is that there are so many gun purchases that it will be impossible to try to confiscate.
Well, you said that there were 970 million, something, 966.
920 plus million.
It's now.
Yeah, it's up.
Now it's 967 because I just picked up a new SIG, so they've got another one on me.
I'm going to go pick up another one myself. So so there you go. All right.
Go get on the list, man. Get on the list as many times as possible.
No doubt. All right. Your last take here. San Jose mayor talks about seizing guns from owners who don't pay the city fee. This is San Jose mayor, wannabe dictator Sam Liccardo spoke to Slate about seizing firearms from people who refuse to pay the city's $25 gun owners fee or comply with the city's new liability insurance requirement for gun owners. And obviously, this guy is just trying to collect a database of gun owners as well. Your take on that?
First of all, it's not a fee, it's a tax. And second of all, this is just yet again proof positive that the Democrats' sole focus is to take away your guns. Don't believe the crazy gun nut host of Armed American Radio. Don't believe crazy Carl Jackson. Believe the Democrats, take them at their word, listen to what they say, and look at their actions. Joe Biden just told you yesterday he wants to use the insurance settlement with Newtown as a blueprint to sue gun manufacturers out of business, because that's what happened to Remington. That's his ultimate goal. That's what they want to do. They want to put the firearms manufacturers and the dealers out of business. When they tell you that they don't want to confiscate your guns, ask them why they're interested in confiscating your guns. When you have a mayor like Sam Liccardo in San Jose that says, I'm going to institute a tax, I'm going to require you to pay a certain fee, I'm going to call it a fee, but it's really a tax, and if you don't pay it, I'm going to take your gun. So don't take it from me. Take these people at their word. They are evil. They hate your right to keep and bear arms. They want to take your guns from you. That's why the anti-gun crowd and establishment is cheering the insurance decision on Remington and can't wait to line up to sue other gun manufacturers in the same fashion. And guess what? They'll go this far that if the blue state that they think they can get away with in doesn't have the same type of law as Connecticut, they'll work to pass that law first, and then they'll use it to sue, just like they did in Connecticut. These people hate you. They hate your rights. They hate the Second Amendment. They want you disarmed, and I will leave you with this, as I've left my listeners for years. When you go to bed tonight, I want you to think about something. What is it about their agenda that requires you disarmed? And you can answer that for yourself.
All right, Mark Walters. Now you know why I love this guy. Mark Walters of Armed American Radio. Again, Mark, just real quick, where can people go to find you? And then you guys stay tuned because I got more stuff that you should be concerned about. Wendy Williams, her bank account was frozen by Wells Fargo. Get the heck out of Wells Fargo, including myself. I'm going to be doing the same. The Ottawa Freedom Convoy donors have been doxxed. A BLM activist gets bail after trying to murder a Jewish man. We'll talk about that. But we also got some victories. But before I get to all of that, Mark, again, thank you for joining us. And again, where do people go to find you?
ArmedAmericanRadio.com. You can click listen live to both shows right there on the website. You can visit my news division at Armed American News and catch up every day on the latest news and opinion that matters relative to the right to bear arms. And we've got Armed American Radio logoed stuff up there for sale. Support us and support our partners that help keep these voices on the airwaves. It is critical because they're trying to silence us.
Amen. And support the Second Amendment by supporting this guy.
Thank you, Carl, for continuing to fight this fight, brother. It matters so much.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate what you do, man. God bless you.
Pleasure was mine to be here. Thank you. Anytime.
Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Mark Walters of Armed American Radio. I want to talk to you about another story that I know a lot of people in the media are not talking about, particularly on our side of the aisle. This isn't a story, perhaps many of us will be concerned about, but I do believe that we should. I do believe that as conservatives, as Christians, as people of faith, as Republicans, we need to be involved in the culture battle. We see where it's got us. The fact that we've detached, the fact that we've removed ourselves from the culture battle, you can see where the culture has gone as a result of that. Many Christians, many people of faith, practicing their faith behind closed doors, being lovey-dovey all the time. That sounds great in theory. It just doesn't work. I mean, the Bible tells us that God came, honestly, to bring a sword. There's times where we're going to have to fight. Do we need to be jerks about it? No. Each situation is an individual situation. I don't think we need to be mean-spirited and all that kind of stuff, but I do think we need to speak the truth, and I do think that we need to be bold about our beliefs and the reasons why we believe what we believe. Here's one of the things. This is a very interesting story. Wendy Williams denies mental health allegations after Wells Fargo freezes her bank accounts. This story is insane. I don't know Wendy Williams. Obviously, she is a celebrity. I'm not a fan of Wendy Williams. I've watched her show a few times over the years. It's basically a gossip type show. And I just don't like gossip, and I can't stand when people gossip. I don't like hanging around people that gossip. It's just not good. Having said that, that is her job. That's what she does for a living, and apparently she's been going through some would say mental health issues. She's denying that, but nonetheless, I want you to pay attention to the authoritarian steps that Wells Fargo Bank has taken against her. This is in line with the Great Reset, and again, this is something you need to find out more about. What these global elitists are trying to do. It's like a global fascism, if you will, that they're trying to impose on the Western Hemisphere. And this goes right along with it, because they get these major players and these major corporations and these banks to play along with imposing these social status type rules onto people. And I'm not even sure Wendy Williams, actually I know she's not, understands what's going on. But this is crazy. This is something that we have to be aware of. I am going to bring you some good news in this podcast too, because we are having some victories. And I'll talk about some of the things from the tip sheet, some news that I want to bring to you that will give you some encouragement. But hat tip, believe it or not, MSN.com. So Wendy Williams is denying accusations about the state of her mental health following her bank, Wells Fargo, freezing her accounts and requesting a hearing from the New York Supreme Court to determine whether the TV personality who has been on hiatus from her show, The Wendy Williams Show, since July of last year due to health complications is an incapacitated person who needs a temporary guardianship. Okay, let's rewind. Let's back up. This is insane. This is crazy. I want to back up to a sentence. Her bank, Wells Fargo, froze her accounts and requested a hearing from the New York Supreme Court to find out whether or not the TV personality was cray-cray, basically. Didn't they get that backwards? Who gives Wells Fargo the right to shut down an account? This lady wasn't delinquent. As far as I know, no credit issues. Obviously, she's a multimillionaire. And these people took it upon themselves at Wells Fargo to shut down her account without a court order, without a family member coming to them, so on, etc., to do that. That is insane. I hope she sues them. I hope she gets a conservative lawyer to sue them. Maybe Harmeet Dillon, Wendy Williams, if you listen to this, because I will hashtag you later. Maybe Harmeet Dillon, you need to sue the pants off of Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo, at the end of your lawsuit, should just be called We. Short for We the People. All right, so let's get back to this story. On behalf, this is Wendy Williams. Who is this? This is her attorney, LaShawn Thomas, speaking on her behalf. And her attorney, LaShawn Thomas, I'm assuming this is a female, says, on behalf of Wendy Hunter, professionally known as Wendy Williams, as counsel to her and her affairs, Wendy wants the world to know that she strenuously denies all allegations about her mental health and well-being. Okay, let me stop and say this. It is not our business. Mind your business. I was talking to a friend of mine about this. He gave me some scripture. We'll probably save that for another day. But this is something that banks and these people that are falling into this great reset nonsense and the overreach of government, we need a slogan, mind your freaking business, government. These people just simply don't have the right to do this. So Wendy Williams shouldn't have to explain to Wells Fargo, a bank that she puts her money in and they utilize daily, I'm sure, to invest and give payouts, so on, etc. She shouldn't have to explain to them anything regarding her medical affairs. This is one of the things that COVID has done. It has made medical privacy obsolete. Republicans, I hope you're listening. We need to bring this back. Her attorney goes on to say, during this hiatus from the show, Wendy has employed holistic health professionals to help her reach optimal health during her treatment of Graves' disease and thyroid concerns. Again, I'm sad that she even has to report that. It's none of our business, quite frankly. In an affidavit filed with the New York Supreme Court, Williams states, and I quote, for more than 2 weeks, Wells Fargo... excuse me, guys. I'm fighting a little cold here. No, it's not COVID. A little cold. But I'm getting over it. For more than 2 weeks, Wells Fargo has repeatedly denied my request to access my financial assets, which total over several $1 million. I have submitted multiple written requests to Wells Fargo, and I have visited various Wells Fargo branches in the South Florida area in an effort to resolve this matter outside of the courtroom. To date, she continues to say, I have submitted and made over a dozen requests regarding the financial damages resulting from Wells Fargo's decision to unlawfully deny me access to my accounts. As a result of my inability to access my financial assets, she says, I have defaulted and I am at risk, listen to this, of defaulting on several billing and financial obligations, including but not limited to mortgage payments and employee payroll. So Wells Fargo is endangering her business. Wells Fargo is destroying her brand. Wells Fargo could potentially allow her home to get repossessed. And by the way, Wendy Williams, let me say this. You're a multimillionaire. Make sure you buy your houses cash. Let's do that going forward. Por favor, please. I'm trying to help you out there. All right. As Variety reported last week, Williams will not be returning to her daytime talk show this season, and the future of her show remains in flux. Meanwhile, another woman, Sherry Shepard, is in advanced discussions with Lionsgate Debmar Mercury for her own daytime talk show, which could potentially replace Williams' series, sources say. But regardless, this is something that Wells Fargo should not be doing. In the affidavit, Williams accuses her former financial advisor, and this is important, Lori Schiller, of alleging that she was of unsound mind and leading Wells Fargo to freeze her accounts. Despite my decision to terminate Schiller as a result of her improper conduct in relation to my accounts, Wells Fargo continues to deny me access to my financial assets and statements. So this lady Lori Schiller, who is concerned, was a financial advisor, concerned about her, goes to Wells Fargo, says, you know what, you should freeze her accounts. I don't know what their relationship was like before she did this, before she fired him. Maybe she was just legitimately concerned about the star. The problem is they did not go through the legal processes, and this should never happen. Lori Schiller should have minded her business. She should have talked to a family member, so on, etc., someone that could have handled this professionally and the right way. She did not do that. So for Wells Fargo to go based upon a stranger's word, and say, listen, this lady is mentally incapacitated or whatever, freeze her accounts, that's insane. So again, just to repeat, despite my decision, Wendy Williams, this is her quote, despite my decision to terminate Schiller as a result of her improper conduct in relation to my accounts, Wells Fargo continues to deny me access to my financial assets and statements. As I am in the process of auditing my current vendor and service contracts to ensure that all personal and business relationships are in line with my current needs. It is essential that I have access to all of my financial property. It appears that Schiller was and is disgruntled by this decision for a potential change in direction, and it saddens me that responded and I have not been able to resolve this controversy amicably. Listen, Wendy Williams, get another attorney. When Wells Fargo does this, you should be paid out big money. You should be able to afford to never go back to work. Actually, you can't afford that now, but you know what I'm saying. Here's what else Wendy Williams had to say, or her attorney added in her statement. It saddens Wendy that Wells Fargo, again, get your money out of there, has chosen to believe the allegations of a former employee who is upset because she no longer has direct and unfettered access to Wendy's financial affairs. Wendy had to unfortunately bring this action because Wells Fargo has refused to honor her power of attorney, granting her son authority to make inquiries to the bank on Wendy's behalf. Wendy further believes that so she has, her son has the power of attorney, or Wendy had to unfortunately bring this action because Wells Fargo has refused to honor her power of attorney. Okay, granting her son authority to make the inquiries to the bank on Wendy's behalf. Wendy further believes that all of the false narratives currently making the rounds derive from this source, and she is saddened that she once considered this person a friend. Wendy can't believe that Wells Fargo has wrongly denied her access to her funds without justification. She has spoken to several banks representatives and has even gone into a local branch and discussed this issue with bank managers as clear evidence that there are no concerns about her state of mind. In fact, Wells Fargo alleged suspicions were never raised until Wendy made it known that she no longer wanted to bank at Wells Fargo due to the bank's mishandling of her complaints against her advisor. I won't go on, but you get the point. The bottom line is, if they can do this to Wendy Williams, this is someone that's high profile. This is someone that's in the public eye. If they can do it to Wendy Williams, they can certainly do it to you. And these banks, these institutions, you're not just seeing government overreach. What you're seeing is the ability of banks to be able to overreach, that are colluding with the government against the working class, and apparently even against making moral decisions, even against the wealthy, if you will, to say, hey, we know what's in your best interest. We're going to go ahead and revoke your ability to be able to withdraw your own money. Wendy Williams, sue the pants off of Wells Fargo. Sue them for enough, and if your attorney isn't up to the task, find an attorney that is. Wells Fargo should almost be bankrupt by the time you're done. I'm not even going to ask for 10% there, wink, wink. All right, so anyway, but this is something that needs to be done. Crazy. All right, moving on. I just want to bring that to your attention because you have to understand that our fight isn't just against government overreach. Our fight is also, when you consider this great reset, our fight is also against any of these corporations that feel like they have the authority, the moral authority, or the power to dictate what we do with our lives. That's insane to me. All right, I want to move on to something else here. All right, the Ottawa Freedom Convoy donors. All right, so Ottawa Freedom Convoy donors have been doxxed. I'm not sure if you guys heard about this, but the Ottawa Freedom Convoy donors have been doxxed. On the northern side of the border in Canada, the CBC has doxxed some of the Ottawa Freedom Convoy donors, not the truckers, the donors, basically sending them an email letting them know, hey, basically, we know who you are. Do you want to comment on this? You know, you apparently gave money to the Freedom Convoy, so on, etc. Do you want to make comment? Why did you decide to do this, so on, etc.? None of their business, but these people are playing dirty. These people are playing hardball. This is tyrannical, and it is sad to me, more than just the government overreach, that you have lapdogs in the media, whether they're north of the border or right here within the United States, that will capitulate to the whims of the left. And why do they do that? Because the media, by and large, are leftists. It's really as simple as that. So Washington Post is doxing American citizens. And by the way, when it comes to the Ottawa Freedom Convoy, the donations are split almost 50-50 from American citizens and Canadian citizens. And the goal is Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos, Amazon owner, founder, so on, etc., are doxing people right here in the United States as well. That's why we got to get away from using Amazon. I try my best not to use them. Don't buy Chinese products, so on, etc. Try your best to the best of your ability. Avoid these big left-wing organizations that really don't care about the people. They care about their power, and they care about their parties. They want to be able to go to the parties with the elite in whatever country they live in, and unfortunately, that's what we're seeing with this great reset. Screw the working class, screw the little man, screw property ownership, so on, etc. For you, they can own property, you can't. It's pretty amazing where we're going, but that's an issue. And then you have a BLM activist, and oh my God, I did not pull this story up. Oh, this is so frustrating. I'm sorry. All right, you have. Let me just search for this really quickly, if you guys don't mind here, as I refresh my page. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on for just a second. I wouldn't recommend this on air typically, unless you're extremely talented, like myself. You might be. All right, so let me see. All right, so BLM posts bail for man who tried to shoot mayoral candidate. By the way, the man happened to be Jewish. All right, no anti-Semitism there, huh? So from the story, Brown, 21, allegedly opened fire with a handgun inside the Democratic mayoral candidate Craig Greenberg's office in Butchertown on Monday, grazing his sweater with a bullet. Neither Greenberg nor and now that is a God thing. If you guys go and see the photos of it, I mean, that bullet, if it would have hit him, would have done some serious damage, if not have killed the gentleman. So neither Greenberg nor any of the five members of his staff present were harmed. Brown was arrested shortly after, charged with attempted murder and 4 counts of wanton endangerment, and detained downtown in the Louisville Metro Department of Corrections. And that's more than 2 years ago. Brown had advocated, and this is so funny, the guy had advocated for gun control just a couple of years ago in his writing, calling lawmakers in the Kentucky State Senate, sellouts to the National Rifle Association, the NRA, in an article for the Courier Journal. He was also interviewed by MSNBC. So what this is blatant anti-Semitism by an attempted murderer that happens to be a BLM activist, and you're not going to hear anything about this from the media. But you should talk about it. You should spread it on your social media sites. We have to let people know what BLM really stands for. These people are violent. These people are hateful, and it's because they're part of the left. What does the left have to offer? Think about this. What is the left offering you besides hate? Seriously, hate your neighbor, hate this person, hate that person, hate this industry. That's their whole modus operandi. If you're associated with the Democrat Party, if you're associated with Antifa, BLM, their modus operandi, all you're living for is hate. How sad, how despicable, how embarrassing. Why would you want to be a part of organizations like that? So anyway, those are some things to be concerned about. But on another note, I want to bring to some attention quickly some victory, something to give you encouragement about. So let's do that now. We have had some victories too, so I want to make sure that all of you in the listening audience remain encouraged and remain vigilant in winning our country, saving our country, restoring our country, beginning in November of this year during the midterm elections. I got some good news for you on that front. And honestly, this news has been out a day or so, but you haven't got to hear it from me. So I want to talk about this in a couple of issues that I think are pretty cool that you may not have heard on any conservative circles. That I think is, listen, there's a great awakening happening, and I think even amongst some lefties, it's a crazy day. I'll just say this regarding one of the articles that I'll talk to you about. It is a great day when those of us that are on the right can agree with Ilhan Omar, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Insane. But anyway, we'll get into that. First, where's the story? What did I just do with the story? Oh, it's right in front of my face. You guys heard about this, but it was a smackdown in San Francisco. Head to BizPack Review. Lesson learned. The title of the story: Don't F with Parents. San Francisco, in my opinion, recalls 3 progressive school board members last night. This happened a couple of nights ago on February 15th. This is very important. So 3 San Francisco left-wing radicals, is what I'm calling them, were recalled in a landslide vote as a parental backlash ensued over remote learning during the pandemic because they renamed schools. And there were First Amendment legal issues and changes to the administration's process at the city's most elite public high school. Parents weren't having it. The vote Tuesday night was nothing less than a referendum against the 3 school board members and an extremely bad indicator for leftists in the 2022 midterm elections. They're exactly right about this. This is an earthquake in San Francisco. And despite the fact, I'll read on, you'll hear some things where you're like, oh, maybe not, Carl. I'll tell you why it still is. I mean, this is a referendum. This is scaring the left. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. This is an earthquake. The recall vote ended in 79%, voting to remove Commissioner Allison Collins. I'll remind you of who she is just shortly here. 75% to remove School Board President Gabriela Lopez. And 73% to boot Commissioner Fagua Maligua from the 7-member panel. Only 3 members were eligible for recall. This is extremely important. It is a 7-member panel, all right? So nearly 50% of that panel, that school board panel, those school board members were recalled. 3 of them. 3 out of 7 recalled. This is insane. Every single one that were up for recall were tossed, were booted by the parents. Parents, you have the power. You are a part of we the people. Even in San Francisco, make sure you utilize your power. I'm so proud of you because parents in San Francisco did. And notice that every single one of these school board members happens to be minorities. People are sick and tired of the fake racism in this country. It makes no sense. These people sit on a school board and they cry, I'm a victim, and everyone that looks like me is a victim while they sit from powers on high. It's pretty insane. Just shut up unless you're telling us how you succeeded. Don't tell us that America is systematically racist where we can't become successful and where we can't rise to places of power when you've done just that. So the idiots have been boosted. The voters, this is according to whom? The San Francisco Mayor, London Breed. I know there's something to be worried about here. I'm going to tell you why maybe we shouldn't be worried when it comes to the Mayor, London Breed. The voters of this city have delivered a clear message that the school board must focus on the essentials of delivering a well-run school system above all else, according to the San Francisco Mayor, London Breed. San Francisco, she goes on to say, is a city that believes in the value of big ideas, but those ideas must be built on the foundation of a government that does the essentials well. The mayor continues, elections can be difficult, but these parents were fighting for what matters most, their children. She enthusiastically added after supporting the initial recall, it's time. So so I know some of you are concerned. All right, she's going to get to appoint these people. I'm so concerned because she's a lefty too. Listen, from what I understand, yes, she does tilt left, but she is more of a moderate swinging Kirsten Sinema type, right? And so she was basically handcuffed by people on the school board and people that have different positions of power within San Francisco has been my understanding. So if this is the case, listen, you're not going to get some straight up right-wing conservatives on the school board. I doubt that would happen, although it wouldn't be a bad idea to try your best to get those people in. But maybe you're just going to get some common people with common sense that are willing to say, you know what, reading, writing, arithmetic, let's not focus on the color of people's skin. Let's believe that all people are achieving are capable of achieving great things regardless of their skin color if we do our jobs as teachers, as educators. The mayor went on to say San Francisco is a city, again, that believes in the value of big ideas. Elections can be difficult, but she supported the recall, and she said it's time we refocus our efforts on the basics of providing quality education for all students while more broadly improving how this city delivers support for children and families. This is good news. All of these left-wing radicals are gone. Bye-bye. This, according to ABC News political director Rick Klein, school boards are where the rubber meets the road when it comes to Americans meeting their government. Schools, for better or worse, are the battlefront. They're where the major issues of 2022 are colliding for so many Americans. And now we know that these people have been brainwashing our children for quite some time, unbeknownst to us. So one of the things that is as bad as it's been, suffering through the lockdowns of COVID imposed upon us by wannabe dictators, is finding out what's been happening to our kids. And now we can save them from the nonsense that the leftists are brainwashing them with, whether it's mask mandates, whether it's CRT, whether it's gender dysphoria and trying to normalize that and normalizing pedophilia, all of this stuff as a result of the lockdowns, which is why I'm grateful. So all of this stuff as a result of the lockdowns are coming to the surface, and we know what's going on, and and these people are losing. So there's some great news there. In another article, great news, Glenn Youngkin, Governor Glenn Youngkin, who's a moderate apparently, is putting in some work. He has some great convictions if he is a moderate. Virginia Governor Youngkin applauds court ruling letting parents opt out of children, letting parents opt children out of mask mandates. Hat tips to Just the News. He says, we're excited that Loudoun has reached this decision. Basically, the Virginia governor is applauding the ruling that took place Wednesday to allow parents to opt their children out of school COVID-19 mask mandates, and that begins today. Today is a great day for Virginia's parents and kids. Youngkin declared, not only did we pass a bipartisan bill that empowering parents to opt out of school mask mandates, but also the Loudoun Circuit Court reaffirmed parents' right to have a say in their child's health, education, care, and well-being. The governor had filed a request to intervene earlier this month in a lawsuit against Loudoun County's school board, and this is where all the drama was happening in Virginia and Loudoun County. Youngkin had issued an executive order to prohibit mask mandates in schools, and parents sued after the board refused to rescind the mandate despite the governor's order. So we're excited. The governor went on to say that Loudoun has reached this decision. Importantly, the court ordered that any disciplinary action against students who were punished for following their parents' decision to remove their masks will be expunged from their records, because the people in the Loudoun County School District were suspending these kids and putting it on their permanent record because they opted not to wear masks. All right, guys, we can never let this happen again. These people, particularly on the left, actually no American should ever be allowed to have this type of emergency power. I feel for the Canadian people as a wannabe dictator, Jussie Trudeau. If you go to liar.com, his Wikipedia page pops up. It's so funny. But it was a good call by the courts, the circuit court in Loudoun County. So listen, your fights are prevailing. Parents, you are doing a very good job. All right, and I'm just going to run through these real quickly. I just want you to be encouraged, and to just encourage you to keep up the fight. Here's why Democrats hat tip CNN. Here's why, when CNN is starting to talk about this stuff, you know that we are prevailing, right? So here's why Democrats' chances of winning in November are slipping. It's amazing because the reading CNN's articles, provide some good insight sometimes, believe it or not. Never watching CNN, it's the craziest thing, but it's true. You always find out more when you read. So, House Democrats are retiring in numbers, not seen in decades, as a dire political outlook. New district lines and a negative environment at the U.S. Capitol have combined into a toxic brew for lawmakers considering their political futures. On Tuesday, and I know some of you have heard about this, but Kathleen Rice became the 30th Democrat to announce plans to not seek re-election in 2022. By comparison, only 13 House Republicans are planning to call it quits or seek higher office. She said, Kathleen Rice did, "I entered public service 30 years ago and never left. I have always believed that holding political office is neither a destiny nor a right. As elected officials," you should tell your compadres that, "we must give all we have and then know when it is time to allow others to serve." So she knows that it's time to allow others to serve, because if we continue to stand up for our rights, if we continue to recognize the party that has brought these lockdowns upon us. Remember, Joe Biden is the puppet in the White House, but it is the Democrat Party and some rhino Republicans, some establishment Republicans that are too weak-kneed to fight for us. We got to remember those people as well. But it is the Democrat Party that wants to exact absolute power over us, and we cannot allow them to do it. She sees the writing on the wall. 30 House Democratic retirements are the most for the party since 1992, when a whopping 41 Democrats walked away from their seats. If one more House Democrat retires before the election, the 2022 cycle will tie the 1976 and 78 election cycles, has the second most retirements in modern history for the party. So if one more retirement, that will be 31. Democrats have already seen more retirements in this cycle than in the last two election cycles combined. They're running scared. Let's keep them on the ropes. I'm so proud of you parents getting involved. In another note, did you guys know Ilhan Omar? Representative Ilhan Omar. Gabe, can you believe this? Your homegirl, Representative Ilhan Omar, has actually stood up for the Ottawa truckers. That's impressive. That doesn't happen. When you get a raised eyebrow from Gabe, you know it's serious. I got a raised eyebrow. Anyway, Ilhan Omar believes that doxing the Ottawa truckers has gone too far. It's a step too far. I'm not sure what made her stand up on this issue. Not sure at all. Maybe she's scared she'll be doxxed one day, I'd imagine. There's a lot of controversy swirling around Ilhan Omar, some corrupt things, some payouts with her new hubby. Some theories, if you will, or some rumors that there's a little money changing hands in her district to make sure people get elected. Some bullying tactics going on in her district, where a bunch of Muslims have come in from different parts of the world and are still acting like they live in different parts of the world. When it comes to voting, they basically have no choice who they vote for. So perhaps She's scared that the spotlight will be sicked on her, if you will. But regardless of why, it's a pretty good day in America when Representative Ilhan Omar agrees or disagrees with tyranny or this fascism, this collusion between the government, these major corporations, the Democratic media establishment. This is a good day in America when you have Representative Ilhan Omar saying, hey, guys, this is a step too far. And another victory, quick, and I'll close it out with this. Austria had tip Breitbart, massive U-turn. Austria to repeal almost all corona apartheid rules targeting the unvaxxed. And what amounts to a seismic U-turn in policy, Austria is to relax all corona apartheid rules targeting the nation's unvaccinated, despite having previously promised to keep unjabbed individuals under perpetual lockdown. Austria's coalition government has announced that the vast majority of lockdown measures in place in the country, including the almost all corona apartheid restrictions specifically targeting the nation's unvaccinated, doesn't mention whether or not they're immune, are to be scrapped beginning on March 5. This is despite authorities having previously promised that the unjabbed would remain under harsh restrictions in perpetuity, with the nation's then Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg telling Austrians that the unjabbed would not be able to participate in society until they were inoculated against the Chinese coronavirus. Guys, this is absolutely insane. You know what? There's some audio. I should have got it. Maybe we'll make sure that we have it for you tomorrow. James O'Keefe doing some amazing work with this FDA executive, basically admitting that when it comes to these COVID jabs, in order for the FDA to continue to be funded, they have to keep these jabs going in perpetuity. It helps with their funding, their collusion, big pharma's collusion with big government. It's insane, but this is what we're dealing with. So, guys, listen, we have to continue fighting. We have to continue fighting all the way through November, and then we have to keep the fight going all the way through November of 2024. We have to take this country back, and the only way to do it is to get rid of these leftists, to get rid of these ideas, expose these ideas, continue to fight against these left-wing ideas, whether it's CRT, whether it's gender dysphoria, constantly victimizing kids, constantly trying to make kids the victims, and then trying to squash any dissent. Government colluding with major corporations, with major media outlets to squash dissent. We cannot stand for it. So anyway, maybe we'll get into that a little bit, and we can't forget about the borders. So perhaps we'll talk about that as well tomorrow. But anyway, guys, listen, I want to thank you for tuning in today. Again, the Carl Jackson podcast is going to undergo a name change just because we have realized, which I did not realize before, there are several other Carl Jackson podcasts. Who would have thunk it? I thought I was as original and unique as they come, but apparently people liked my name so much they decided to steal it. But until next time, guys, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you, and I will see you tomorrow.